We're heading to Kanpur, India, to a place called the Trimurti Apartments. Now, from the outside, it looks like any other apartment building. But inside one of these homes, a story unfolded that is, well, it's almost impossible to wrap your head around. It's a story about a father, a dark secret, and an act of violence against his own children that will leave you speechless. Can you even imagine hearing those words? It's 5 a.m., you're woken up by the police, and that is what they tell you. This was the reality for a mother named Reshma. Her entire world just shattered in a single moment, all because of a phone call her own husband made to the police, confessing to the absolute unthinkable. And that really brings us to the central question we have to ask here. How could Shashi Ranjan Mishra, a man who, by many accounts, really seemed to adore his 11-year-old twin daughters, Reedy and Seedy, how could he become their killer? Was this something that just happened in a moment of madness? Or was it something far, far more calculated? All right, so let's start at the moment this all came to light, the moment a mother's worst nightmare became terrifyingly real. So picture this. The doorbell rings, and it's insistent. Reshma, she'd been sleeping in a completely separate room with her young son, and she gets up to answer it. Standing right there are police officers, and they don't waste any time. They tell her straight up, "Your husband called us. He confessed to murdering your two daughters." She just panics. She runs to the bedroom that he shared with the girls, and the first thing she sees is the bed. It's perfectly neat. The bedsheet is completely untouched. But then she looks down to the floor, and it's a scene of unimaginable horror. Her daughters, Riddhi and Siddhi, are lying in pools of their own blood. And just sitting nearby, almost calmly, is her husband, his face and shirt stained with blood. So how did it get to this point? To understand that, we have to rewind the clock. We need to piece together exactly what happened inside that locked bedroom, hour by hour. The evening actually started out pretty normal. Around 10 p.m., the family has dinner, and then the father takes the girls to their room. But just before 2 in the morning, he strangles his daughter Riddhi. And then he waits. About half an hour later, his other daughter, Siddhi, wakes up to go to the bathroom. And get this, their mother actually sees him take her on a CCTV monitor. He brings her back to the room, and then at 3:35 a.m., he kills her too. He then waits almost another hour before calmly picking up the phone and confessing to the police. And this is what's so chilling. This wasn't some sudden, explosive act of rage. No, this was planned. It was methodical. His very first move was to actually change the angle of the CCTV camera in the bedroom so his wife couldn't see what he was about to do. He then strangled each girl first to make sure they couldn't scream before using a chopper he'd bought just a week earlier. That pause, that hour-long wait between the murders, it's just deeply, deeply disturbing. The brutality of it, it's just hard to even talk about. The post-mortem report later found that the chopper blade went 4 inches deep into the girls' necks. 4 inches. It completely severed their food pipes. His goal, it seems, wasn't just to kill them, but to make sure there was absolutely zero chance they would survive. So the big question is, why? What could possibly drive a person to do this? Well, the answer seems to lie in a family that was already broken, living this deeply fractured life under one roof, an environment where control and fear had totally replaced love. You have to understand, this wasn't really one family living together. It was more like 2 separate factions trapped in the same small apartment. You had Shashi and his twin daughters living in one room, which was always kept locked. Then you had Reshma and her son, Ganu, living in another. A literal line had been drawn in the house. The son was forbidden from ever setting foot in his sister's room. It's a classic, terrifying tool of domestic control, breaking a family apart from the inside. And he maintained this control through a really toxic mix of fear and surveillance. His wife reported constant abuse, which was fueled by his drinking and the stress from a failing business. He was also incredibly paranoid, completely convinced his wife was having an affair. And this paranoia led to something truly chilling. He installed CCTV cameras in every single room of the house. Every room, except the bathroom. It created this atmosphere where you could never, ever feel safe. So, let's get to the confession. What was the rationale, what was the logic, if you can even call it that he gave the police for committing this monstrous act? According to his wife, his mental state took a nosedive after his own mother passed away. He became obsessed with his own death, constantly telling her he felt like he was going crazy and that he wanted to die. This just became a recurring theme, this dark cloud of grief and depression just hanging over their already divided home. And this is where his thinking takes a truly horrifying turn. He started telling his wife that if he was going to die, he couldn't possibly leave his daughters behind. He was absolutely convinced that no one else, especially not his wife, could love or care for them the way that he did. In his twisted mind, this possessive control went beyond life itself. Killing them was his final, terrible act of ownership. So when the police questioned him, this is the cocktail of motives he laid out. It was the depression from his mother's death, the financial ruin, the paranoia about his wife, and all of it was filtered through this incredibly selfish belief that his daughters' lives were tied only to his. He essentially claimed he murdered them because of his problems. But the tragedy didn't stop when the police arrived. For the mother and for the whole community, the aftermath brought its own kind of unique horror and pain. This detail is it's absolutely heartbreaking. The bodies of Riddhi and Siddhi lay in the hospital morgue for nearly 15 hours. Why? Because their mother, Reshma, was in such a profound state of shock that she was physically unable to sign the autopsy papers. And the father's side of the family? They'd been distant for years. Not a single relative showed up to offer support or to claim the bodies of these two little girls. So in the end, this is what's left. The father, Shashi, confessed and is in police custody. The mother, Reshma, is left completely alone to grieve the loss of her daughters while trying to raise her son. The extended family is just gone. A family unit, as broken as it was completely and utterly destroyed in a single night. And that leaves us with this final, crucial question. The cameras everywhere, the divided rooms, the isolation, the constant talk of death, all the warning signs of extreme domestic control and a serious mental health crisis were there, but they were all contained within the four walls of that apartment. It forces us to ask, how many other families are living with this kind of hidden turmoil? And what can any of us do to see the darkness before it's too late?